Have you ever noticed that as you get older, some people slowly start drifting out of your life? Maybe it's a friend who used to call every week but now barely responds to a message. Or a family member who once depended on you but now acts like you're invisible. If that's happened to you, I want to start by saying this. You're not alone. And more importantly, there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, what if I told you that when people begin to disappear from your life, it's not always a sign that something is falling apart. It might actually be a sign that you are growing? At this stage in life, many of us start paying closer attention to our peace. We no longer want drama. We don't want to feel like we're constantly giving while getting nothing in return. And as we begin to honor our own needs, set boundaries, and choose peace over people-pleasing, something surprising often happens. People who were never really there for us in the first place start to fade away. And that's where I want to begin today. Let's talk about the people in your life who take more than they give. You know the ones I mean. They only come around when they need something, from a ride to a loan to your time, energy, or emotional support. When you need them, though, they're suddenly busy. They vanish. Or worse, they make you feel guilty for needing anything at all. The truth is, toxic people don't want your love. They want your attention, your reaction, your energy. Love requires effort. But attention? That's easier to take, and they'll keep taking it for as long as you're willing to give. You see, someone who is truly selfish rarely gives anything without expecting something back. They may appear generous at first, offering you flattery, small gifts, or even help, but only as long as it benefits them. The moment you stop feeding their ego or stop playing by their rules, they turn cold, distant, or controlling. This is the trap many people fall into, especially those of us with kind hearts. We want to believe in the best in others. We were raised to give people second chances. We were told to be patient, to be forgiving, to not make a fuss. And so we stay. We give. We wait. We hope. But the hard truth is, a person who only knows how to take will never suddenly learn how to give, especially if they've never been taught accountability. And let me tell you something that took me far too long to learn. Your attention is a gift, a precious gift. Every time you answer a phone call from someone who drains you, every time you walk on eggshells around someone just to keep the peace, every time you keep giving to someone who has no intention of ever giving back, you are handing them your power. Now I know that sounds harsh, but it's not about bitterness. It's about clarity. And clarity is freedom. When someone constantly needs you, but never checks on you, when someone praises you in public but criticizes you in private, when someone makes you feel like you're always too much or not enough, those are not signs of love. Those are signs of manipulation. Toxic people often use attention as a tool to control. At first, they'll make you feel special. They might compliment you endlessly. They'll act like no one understands them the way you do. And that can feel flattering. But little by little, they chip away at your independence. They might question your other friendships, make you feel guilty for taking time for yourself, or demand that you prove your loyalty by sacrificing your peace. That's not connection. That's control. And here's the part that can be especially hard to admit. Sometimes we've let these people stay in our lives for years. Sometimes they're family. Sometimes they're people we've known since we were young. Sometimes it's someone we once loved deeply. And it's painful to imagine our lives without them. But here's something worth remembering. Just because someone has a long history with you doesn't mean they have a healthy future with you. One of the most loving things you can do for yourself is to recognize the signs before they cost you your peace. Because toxic people rarely change on their own. Not without consequences. Not without boundaries. So what are the signs you might be dealing with someone toxic? You constantly feel drained after interacting with them. You feel anxious when their name pops up on your phone. You find yourself questioning your worth after conversations. You feel responsible for their happiness, but they never seem to care about yours. You feel like you can't say no, even when you're exhausted. Sound familiar? Now, before you feel guilty or blame yourself, let me be clear. Recognizing this doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're waking up. And that awareness is the beginning of growth. We were never taught, especially in older generations, to set emotional boundaries. Many of us grew up believing that love meant sacrifice, that family is everything, or that saying no makes us selfish. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-abandonment. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you prioritized your peace over someone else's approval? When was the last time you said, "I'm not available for this kind of treatment anymore"? If your answer is not lately, then maybe it's time to try. Because here's the truth. You cannot fix someone who refuses to grow. You cannot teach someone to value you while you continue to undervalue yourself. You can love people deeply and still walk away from the ones who hurt you. Walking away doesn't mean you've given up on them. It means you've chosen to believe in yourself. And I'll tell you something beautiful that often happens once you do that. The right people start to show up. People who respect your time. People who honor your boundaries. People who see your worth without you having to convince them. But those people won't come as long as your energy is tied up in the wrong places. And yes, it's going to feel lonely at first, especially if you've spent years being the giver, the fixer, or the one who always shows up no matter what. But solitude isn't the same as emptiness. Sometimes solitude is the sacred space where healing begins. You don't have to earn love by shrinking yourself. You don't have to tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. You don't have to prove your worth to people who've already made up their minds. You only have to remember this one thing. The moment you start honoring yourself, the people who never truly cared will begin to drift away. And that's not a tragedy. That's a transformation. It's not always easy, is it? To realize that someone you cared for, someone you trusted, might have never had the same level of care or respect for you. That realization stings. But here's the thing I want you to remember. Walking away from what's harmful is not weakness. It's wisdom. And the deeper that wisdom grows, the more you begin to see things clearly, especially about yourself. Because at the heart of all these changes, all these growing pains, lies something more powerful than anything else: your self-worth. You see, every healthy relationship you've ever had, or ever will have, starts with one thing: your ability to respect yourself. Not in a proud or boastful way, but in the quiet, grounded way that says, "I matter. My feelings are valid. My peace is non-negotiable." For so many years, maybe even most of your life, you were told to put others first. And while generosity is beautiful, it should never come at the cost of your dignity. The truth is, when we don't respect ourselves, we start accepting relationships that chip away at who we are. We make excuses for people who hurt us. We overextend ourselves thinking love means sacrifice, even if that sacrifice is our joy. But I want to say this clearly. Love without self-respect is just survival. It's walking through life, tiptoeing around everyone else's expectations while never meeting your own. And the moment you start honoring your own worth, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing approval and you start setting boundaries. Let's talk about boundaries for a moment, because for many of us that word might feel uncomfortable. Maybe you grew up in a household where saying no was seen as defiance. Or maybe you were taught to be agreeable, helpful, always accommodating, no matter how much it drained you. And now when you start saying things like, "I'm not available for this conversation," or "that comment hurt me and I won't accept it," it feels foreign, maybe even selfish. But boundaries aren't walls. They're doors. They're what let the right people in and keep the wrong ones out. And when someone crosses those boundaries repeatedly, not by accident, but as a pattern, they are telling you everything you need to know. Because let's be honest, a person who truly cares about you won't ignore your boundaries. They won't mock your feelings. They won't make you feel guilty for taking care of your own emotional health. They'll listen, they'll respect, they'll adjust, not because they have to, but because they want to. That's what real love looks like. And here's another truth we don't talk about enough. Just because someone gives you attention doesn't mean they have good intentions. Attention can feel flattering. It can feel like love. But attention without respect, without kindness, without consistency, that's not love. That's performance. That's control in disguise. We've all known people like that. People who make grand gestures in public but tear us down in private. People who shower us with affection only to withdraw it when we speak up. People who say, "I love you," but act like we're a burden the moment we set a boundary. So let me ask you this. Would you rather have someone's attention or their intention? Because attention says, "I want you now." Intention says, "I want to build something real with you." Attention disappears when you stop playing by their rules. Intention sticks around even when things get tough. When you start living from a place of self-respect, you begin to see these patterns more clearly. You start to recognize who's clapping for you only when they're in the spotlight, and who's supporting you, even when no one's watching. You stop settling for crumbs of affection and start seeking full meals of honesty, care, and mutual effort. You also stop trying to fix people who don't want to grow. That one's a hard pill to swallow, especially for those of us who are natural nurturers. We think, if I just love them enough, they'll change. If I'm patient, they'll come around. But the truth is, some people are not interested in growing. They are only interested in what they can get. And no amount of love, patience, or forgiveness will fill a heart that refuses to open. You cannot heal someone who is committed to their own dysfunction. You cannot carry someone who's determined to stay broken. And you cannot find peace in a relationship where love is always one-sided. There comes a time, especially later in life, when you realize that peace is far more valuable than potential. You begin to understand that real love doesn't require you to sacrifice your sanity. It doesn't ask you to shrink, to silence yourself, or to pretend everything's okay when it's not. Real love adds to your life. It brings warmth, not worry. It lifts you up, not drags you down. So if someone in your life consistently disrespects your boundaries, if they only show up when they need something, if they make you feel less than again and again, it's okay to let them go. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of love for yourself. And when you do that, don't be surprised if they push back. Toxic people often do. They're not used to you standing up for yourself. They might call you selfish, cold, dramatic. But that's only because they benefited from your silence. And now, your strength is uncomfortable for them. Let it be. Because the moment you start living in alignment with your self-worth, you stop needing to convince anyone of your value. You simply become it. And that's when the world begins to treat you differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. You'll find that the right people, the people who are meant to walk this part of the journey with you, will honor your growth. They won't be intimidated by your boundaries. They'll be grateful for your honesty. They won't pull away when you speak your truth. They'll lean in closer. And slowly, you'll start replacing those who drain you with those who fill you. You'll notice conversations feel lighter. Days feel calmer. And your heart finally begins to rest. Because when you live from a place of self-respect, you no longer settle for half-loves, empty promises, or relationships that feel like emotional tug-of-war. You stop trying to fit into places you've outgrown. And you start trusting that the peace you've created is not only enough, it's sacred. You may find that as your sense of peace deepens, your world becomes quieter. Some people leave without explanation. Others fade gently, without argument or drama. At first, that silence can feel strange, even painful. You might start to question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Was I too harsh? Too distant? But more often than not, the truth is simple. Your growth no longer feeds their comfort. And not everyone is meant to go where you're headed. It's easy to believe that when people leave, it means we've failed. We think we must have done something to push them away. But the deeper truth is this: not everyone who leaves is a loss. Some people leave because your growth shines a light on the places they're unwilling to change. Some leave because they were only ever meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. And some were never truly with you to begin with. They were attached to your old patterns, your old fears, the version of you that tolerated what no longer aligns with the person you're becoming. So instead of clinging to what's gone, start honoring what's unfolding. Because this part of life, this chapter where people fall away and solitude becomes your companion, it's not a punishment. It's preparation. It's the space where you finally begin to hear your own voice again, without all the noise of obligation, guilt, and performance. You begin to notice what brings you joy. You stop rushing to explain yourself. You start choosing rest over overextending. And with each quiet morning, each unhurried conversation, each boundary lovingly upheld, you return to yourself. Now, I'll be honest. This growth is not always easy. There will be moments when you miss certain people, not because they were good for you, but because they were familiar. There will be times when you ache for connection, and loneliness creeps in like an unwelcome guest. But don't confuse loneliness with lack. Sometimes being alone is exactly what your soul needs to realign. Because here's the truth. Being alone is better than being half-loved. It's better than shrinking yourself to make someone else comfortable. Better than second-guessing your worth just to keep someone from leaving. Love that costs your peace is too expensive. And yet, we've been taught to settle, especially as we age. The world sometimes whispers things like, "You're too old to start over," or "At your age, just be grateful someone wants you." But I'm here to tell you, don't believe those lies. You are never too old to choose better. Never too old to begin again. Never too old to love yourself enough to wait for someone who sees your value without needing to be convinced. And yes, love is still possible, no matter your age. But real love, the kind that brings healing, not harm, requires patience. It requires discernment. It asks you to say no to what is almost right, so you can say yes to what's truly meant for you. So if you're in a season where love feels distant, if you're tempted to settle because you don't want to be alone, pause. Just pause. Because the love you truly deserve will never make you feel like you're hard to love. It won't demand that you sacrifice your joy. It won't ask you to compromise the parts of yourself you fought so hard to reclaim. The love that is meant for you will recognize your value. It will match your effort. It will show up not just when it's convenient, but when it matters. It will be rooted in respect, not possession. In intention, not illusion. In partnership, not control. That love will feel like a deep exhale, like coming home to yourself, not losing yourself. And until that love arrives, or even if it never does in the way you imagined, you can still live a full, meaningful, joyful life. Because love, as beautiful as it is not the only thing that makes life worth living. Peace makes life worth living. Purpose, connection, kindness, growth, rest, creativity. These are not things to chase when everything else is perfect. These are things to claim now, even as life shifts and changes and lets go. So here's what I want you to remember. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not too late. You are exactly where you need to be. And the right people, the ones who see your growth and honor your heart, will find their way to you. Not because you chase them, but because you chose yourself first. When you live in your truth, you naturally repel what no longer aligns. That's not loss. That's alignment. That's strength. Let them go, if they must go. Let the silence stretch. Let the space open up. Something beautiful is growing in that space. And it's you. You have spent so much of your life taking care of others, making sure everyone else was okay. Now it's time to take care of you. Not in a selfish way, but in a soulful way. Protect your peace. Guard your joy. Trust your gut. And know that just because someone is gone doesn't mean the best parts of your story are behind you. Your story is still unfolding. Your light still matters. Your heart still has room to give and receive love in all its forms. You don't need a crowd to be worthy. You don't need applause to be valuable. And you certainly don't need the approval of people who never saw you clearly in the first place. You only need to stand in the truth of who you are. A growing, evolving, worthy human being. And I'll leave you with this. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not react, not explain, not beg, but simply walk away from what doesn't honor you and keep walking until you find the place where you feel most like yourself. That's where your people will find you. That's where peace will meet you. That's where your next beautiful chapter begins. Thank you for being here with me today. If anything I shared spoke to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your stories matter. Your voice matters. Let's continue building a community where we lift one another up, no matter what stage of life we're in. And if this message brought you comfort, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life for more heart-centered content made just for you. Here's to living your most peaceful, empowered, and authentic life, no matter your age. You deserve nothing less.